Have you ever sat down to get some work or studying done and literally 5 minutes later, you're completely exhausted, checking your phone, and totally distracted? Yeah, you are absolutely not alone. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're tackling the modern focus crisis head-on. But here's the good news. What if I told you that you could fundamentally rewire your brain to concentrate effortlessly? Today, we're going to break down exactly how to solve this crisis and achieve a massive improvement in your attention span. We're actually going to look at the exact scientific methods that legendary inventor Nikola Tesla used. He took his own focus from incredibly poor as a child to an estimated 100 times improvement. So we're going to reverse engineer focus using neuroscience to get you totally locked in.
Okay, let's dive into this. Research has highlighted a truly startling fact about our modern brains. The average human memory and focus power has actually dropped below that of a goldfish. Yes, a goldfish, an organism that is basically famous for swimming in little circles and forgetting where it even is. Because of our modern lifestyles and just this constant bombardment of notifications and stimuli, our cognitive staying power has completely plummeted. But, before we fix it, we need a baseline. So I want to challenge you right now to a quick, interactive test to see exactly where your focus power currently stands.
All right, let's do this. I want you to stare directly at the center dot on your screen right now. Just the center dot for 10 seconds. Ready? Go. Just keep your eyes locked right on the absolute center. Don't let your gaze drift at all. Okay, stop. Now, if your focus power is excellent, as you stared at the center, all those peripheral dots on the side should have slowly started to disappear from your vision. If all the outer dots vanished, your concentration is incredibly sharp. But if less than 3 dots disappeared, or honestly none at all, your focus is kind of lacking. If that's you, hey, don't worry. It just means you really need the next 7 days of training we're about to unpack.
So, here is the cognitive roadmap we're going to use today. We'll start with the distraction crisis, then the arrow analogy, visual and mental training, brain rhythms, and finally, the lifestyle base. Let's get to it.
Step 1. The distraction crisis.
Before we can build this fortress of focus, we have to understand exactly what is currently tearing our concentration down, right? You can't fix a problem without knowing the root cause. So, there are 3 main enemies here. First up is low epinephrine. This is the brain chemical responsible for giving you that initial push to start a task. If you struggle to just get going, you're likely low on this. The second enemy? Multitasking. Imagine you have exactly 1 liter of water. You can either drink it all yourself to quench your thirst or, well, actually, imagine trying to divide it into tiny drops among 100 different people. When you multitask, you're taking your brain's limited resources and scattering them. Nobody gets quenched and your focus shatters. The third enemy is easy dopamine. We live in an era of social media, reels, shorts, and these give your brain massive, instant hits of cheap dopamine. Compared to that immediate rush, sitting down to study or work provides a much slower dopamine release, which makes those really important tasks feel incredibly boring by comparison.
Step 2. The arrow analogy. Now that we know what's hurting us, we need to transition to the biological why. We need to break down how our brain chemicals actually work when we do manage to concentrate. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens in your head. Think of your focus as an arrow being shot at a target. First, you have the tail of the arrow, which represents that epinephrine we just talked about. Just like the tail gives the arrow its initial momentum off the bowstring, epinephrine gives you that starting push. Next is the long shaft of the arrow, representing acetylcholine. This chemical locks your focus in. It keeps the arrow flying straight and true for a long time without veering off course. Finally, you've got the tip of the arrow hitting the bullseye, and that represents dopamine. When you complete your task, dopamine delivers that rewarding hit of satisfaction. These 3 chemicals literally have to work in perfect harmony to achieve true concentration.
Step 3. Visual and mental training.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, we understand the chemistry, now let's move into the active solutions. And we're starting with a fascinating biological link, how our physical eyes actually control our mental focus. Your eyes and your brain are directly, inextricably linked. What your eyes do, your brain processes. Research shows that highly focused people blink significantly less. They average only about 7 blinks per minute. On the flip side, people with low concentration, they blink around 20 times per minute. The takeaway here is absolutely profound. Visual stability literally is mental stability. If your eyes are darting all over the place and constantly blinking, your brain is doing the exact same thing.
So how do we train this? Well, the solution is this ancient Vedic technique called Tradaka. Today, it's known in modern circles, even used by the US military actually, as the gaze fixation drill. The drill is super simple, but honestly pretty challenging. You just stare at a single object, like a candle flame or a spot on your wall, for 90 seconds. You are allowed to blink, but your visual focus cannot break or wander. By practicing this daily, science shows you can increase your focus power by 30% in just 7 days. You are physically training your brain to stay locked onto a target by training your eyes first.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the impact of intentionally being bored. In a clinical study, Group A was told to do 10 minutes of completely boring tasks every day. We're talking staring at a blank wall or reading plain text. Group B did nothing out of the ordinary. After 7 days, Group A saw a staggering 42% increase in their focus. Why? Let's use a foreign currency analogy. Imagine you have 500 rupees. In your home country, it holds a certain value, right? But if you travel to a much more expensive country, that same 500 rupees feels totally worthless. By constantly scrolling social media, you inflate your brain's dopamine economy. Doing boring things intentionally resets your brain's baseline dopamine value. It teaches your brain to find value and reward in the slower tasks, which massively spikes your ability to concentrate when it's time to work.
Step 4. Brain rhythms.
We've talked about training the focus muscle itself, but how should we structure our actual daily workflow to respect our biological limits? Well, the magic number here is 90. Stanford University research has shown that the human brain operates on strict 90-minute rhythms. When you sit down to work, your concentration slowly climbs, it peaks, and then, after exactly 90 minutes, it drops essentially to zero. Pushing past this without a break is completely useless because your brain just won't retain the information. The science dictates that you must work in 90-minute blocks, followed immediately by a 15 to 20-minute break. And this break must involve walking or resting. Absolutely no mobile phones allowed. If you pull out your phone and start scrolling, you're not recharging. You're just firing off more of that cheap dopamine and completely ruining the reset process.
But what about those days when you just can't get into that 90-minute rhythm? You know, when you feel highly distracted right out of the gate. Studies suggest using binaural beats. This is specific audio you can easily find online, and it acts like a shortcut to meditation. It relaxes your brainwaves and primes your mind for focus. Listening to this for 15 to 20 minutes before a task can completely pull you out of a distracted state. Also, try verbally talking out loud to yourself about the tasks you're going to do today. I know it sounds a little silly, but this simple act of speaking your goals out loud actually prepares and primes your brain's neural pathways for the work ahead.
Finally, step 5, the lifestyle base. Look, all the visual drills and 90-minute timers in the world will not save you if your fundamental biological machine is broken. We need to look at the foundational steps required to maintain these focus chemicals long-term. Speaking of which, do me a favor and check your posture right now. Seriously, are you slouching? Most of us study or work slumped over on a bed or a couch, but your spinal cord connects directly to your brain's nervous system. When you slouch, your spine and nerves are physically misaligned, which disrupts the transmission of signals to your brain. Sitting straight at a desk isn't just about looking professional, it ensures optimal nervous system transmission, boosting your immediate focus and actually preventing long-term brain diseases associated with neural compression.
And let's quickly touch on your essential brain fuel. You already know you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. We all know that. But let's talk about hydration. Your brain is literally 70% water. When you're dehydrated, your brain cells physically shrink. This shrinking slows down the signals between your neurons and absolutely destroys your concentration. So if you ever feel your focus slipping and that brain fog setting in, just drink a glass of water. It physically plumps those brain cells back up and restores the speed of your neural connections.
Building focus requires doing the hard things. Elite endurance athlete David Goggins talks about running, and he says, "It's the one thing I hate the most to do, and I do it like I love it." He doesn't run just for physical fitness. He runs to train his mind. He intentionally does the boring, painful things he hates in order to build an unbreakable focus muscle. To concentrate better, we must actively condition our minds to tolerate discomfort and boredom. So, we've broken it all down: the chemistry, the visual drills, the brain rhythms, and the biological foundations. The path to a 100x improvement in your focus is laid out right in front of you. The question is, will you start your 90-second visual drills today? Leave a comment below with your commitment. I'm going to leave you with this final thought. What if the only thing standing between you and your absolute greatest life ambition isn't a lack of talent, but simply the inability to hold your attention for one more minute? If you found this explainer valuable, share it with a friend who desperately needs a focus boost. Until next time, stay focused, stay curious, and keep explaining the world around you.